Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Depending on where in the world you're joining us from, feel free to let us know where you are in the chat so we can get a sense. We have a lot of people here this morning. Welcome. We'll get started just in 1 minute or so. We have folks from Pakistan, from Kenya. Hello, everyone. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks so much for joining us today. Welcome to this session in our Apply Board Focus Series, United States, where your questions about the U.S. higher education system will be answered. Over the next 30 minutes or so, and with the help of our university guest panelists, we'll be answering key questions related to the process of applying for and obtaining a student visa for full-time study in the United States. Before we begin, a few reminders. First, following today's webinar, attendees will receive a recording of this session, as well as some helpful resources about the U.S. student visa process. Another resource I'd like to highlight is Apply Board's U.S. Counselor course. This comprehensive and free training delivers insight into various aspects of the United States as a study destination and provides you with key information regarding the international student experience. You can find this and other resources about the U.S. and other study destinations on the Apply Board platform. During today's session, if you have any questions that are not addressed by our panelists, please feel free to send those through the Q&A, which you can access at the bottom of your screens. We plan to spend most of our time responding to pre-submitted questions, so thanks to all of you for submitting those great questions in advance. And we hope to get to some of the questions that you submit live here today at the end of the session if time allows. Please note that only questions pertaining to the topic of the U.S. student visa process will be considered. And again, we ask that you submit your questions via the Q&A rather than the chat. And then lastly, as usual, please reach out to your regular Apply Board representative if you have any questions about Apply Board or about advising students considering study in the United States. So what will we cover today? The agenda for today's session is as follows. First, our guest presenters will introduce themselves and their institutions. Then we'll move to a panel discussion, and our presenters will go over the U.S. student visa process by answering the questions that you, our recruitment partners, have submitted in advance. Finally, we'll wrap up today's event with a live Q&A session, and we hope to keep everything concise and get you out of here in about 30 to 35 minutes. I think it's important to mention before we introduce ourselves that our university guest presenters will be speaking about the U.S. student visa process and specifically the F1 student visa process based on their experience as international student advisors or designated school officials at their institutions. They are not immigration attorneys, and while they can provide general information and advice, they cannot speak on behalf of the U.S. government. Also, there can be variations in the visa process and experience across the different U.S. embassies and consulates around the world. While they may be able to touch on some broader issues or trends, they cannot comment on the particular U.S. embassy or consulate that serves your students. All right, so let's get started with introductions. I am Carrie Fuse, a partner relations manager for the U.S. team here at Apply Board. I'm based in Chicago, Illinois, and I support our U.S. college and university partners in the southern half of the United States. I've been working in international education for about 20 years, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. Our guest presenters for today are Dr. Jason Tannenbaum, International Strategic Director at Monroe College, and Amani Al-Dajani, Director of International Student Services and Principal Designated School Official at Hood College. Jason, if you can start by introducing yourself and Monroe College.
Good day, everyone. Thank you, Carrie, for the introduction and for hosting this webinar. Very happy to be here. We're at Monroe College. So I'm Dr. Jason Tannenbaum. I'm a director also of enrollment and also of ESL at Monroe College. So many of our students come in through ESL, and then matriculate into a degree, undergraduate or graduate degree. We've been around since about 1933, and we have progressed to college. We started as a business school, and now the college does mainstream majors such as business and computer science, but also some niche majors such as culinary and hospitality and criminal justice. We're doing some fun things here in New Rochelle, New York, and in the Bronx, New York. And I'm going to talk to you today about my experience with helping students get through the visa process. That's my plan today, and I look forward to speaking to you about that.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jason. So to you, Amani, please introduce yourself and Hood College.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Amani Aldajani, and I am the Director of International Student Services and PDSO, which stands for Principal Designated School Official. As I said earlier, I work at Hood College, which is located in Frederick, Maryland. It was founded in 1893, and it is very close to Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. So we are 40 minutes away from D.C., and it's a very unique location, I would say. It's close to everyone. At Hood College, we have 32 bachelor degrees, 20 master degrees, 2 doctorate degrees, and I would say 10 post-baccalaureate certificates. We also offer grad school courses in the evening and weekend. So many of our students are actually professionals. They work and they do attend school. Me, myself, I earned my master's degree in business administration from Hood College. So I have experience being a student at Hood College and as an international student. Also, I would say F1 students make up to 12% of our graduate population. We have excellent CPT and OPT opportunities with 100% approval rate. So CPT is the internship, which is the curricular practical training. So you can do it while you are students at Hood College. The OPT is the optional practical training. So once you earn your degree, you may work full-time here in the US. And if you are a STEM major students, like a computer science, information technology, you can work up to 3 years. You can apply for something called the STEM OPT extension. And here where I am very proud to report, we have 100% approval rate. None of our students did get rejected. And definitely we have competitive tuition cost. International students do get the same fees as domestic students, like American students, so the same cost. So if you're an international student, you will not pay more just because you're international students. And I would say our most popular programs, as you see from the slide, we have so many programs, but our most popular program for international students are computer science, information technology, Master of Business Administration, and Management Information System. These are the most popular programs here we have at Hood College, and I definitely help students to apply for, I issue the I-20 and I help them with the visa processing and I answer their question. And I'm here to answer any of your questions that you may have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to you both for agreeing to join us today and share your expertise. So we'll go ahead and get started. If we can, move to the first question. Our first question is a general question and starts at the beginning. So what are the steps required to schedule an F1 student visa appointment and interview? And I think maybe I'll ask Amani to start us off.
Sure. So basically, the first step you would need is a form called I-20. So once you get an acceptance from a U.S. institution, the PDSO or a DSO may issue something called I-20 form. This will be your very first step to schedule a visa appointment. You need an I-20 form, then you have to pay your CVIS fee. So there is a fee that's associated with this I-20. And there is a form that you need to complete, which is called DS-160. And then you may go and check the available appointment at the embassy in your country, I would say. So it depends. Some of them you may schedule an appointment online, and most of them after COVID, I would say you may schedule an appointment online. and then you can take it from there.
Awesome. Jason, can you maybe add a little bit more color to what exactly is needed for an I-20 to be issued?
Sure. Great. Good. Amani had a great introduction there. I would say, so there, for us, for our school at Monroe College, there's really 2 or 3 steps, depending on how you look at it. But the first step is you have to be accepted first. And Amani talked about this. Acceptance means you have to be academically qualified. So if you're applying for a bachelor's degree, a 4-year or an associate's degree, you have to prove that you graduated from high school. You have to show your transcript. You have to show your diploma. And if those, at least for our school, if those documents are written in another language, you have to have them professionally translated, and all of the documents must be uploaded to the site. Okay, so you have to be academically accepted first, but then there's a new challenge. You must be financially accepted. Okay, so the U.S. government requires that, depending on the cost of your classes, where you live, if you're living on campus or not, you need to be able to show, or your sponsor must be able to show, that you have enough money for 2 semesters of school. That includes tuition, your housing, which can be expensive, and food and other miscellaneous things. In order to get accepted, you have to be able to show that you're academically qualified, but also that you or your sponsor is financially qualified. So that I would say that's what you need before you get the I-20. Okay, and then the I-20 is like a ticket. It's like a ticket for your interview. You use that I-20 number to make your interview at the U.S. Embassy.
Excellent. So the I-20 is the key, along with the 2 other items that Amani mentioned, paying your SEVIS fee and completing the DS-160 form. With that information, you can schedule your appointment online. So that leads us to our next question. Once you're able to get an interview appointment at the U.S. consulate or embassy in your jurisdiction, what does the interview entail and what questions are typically asked? I will have Jason start us off with this one.
Sure. I think the questions that are generally asked are, where are you going to school? Do you know where you're going to school? And what is your major? What is your purpose for going there? Okay. And this is a point where I'm sure Amani and I will have maybe even some differing opinions about this, but one of the challenges is they're going to be testing your English, first of all. Do you have enough English even to start an ESL program? Because most ESL programs do not start from level 0. Because most students who are taking these ESL programs are taking them for the purpose of going to college. So you have to be really just 1 or 2 steps away to start your ESL program. They want to know, do you speak English well? And what they're really trying to find out is, what's your real purpose of going? And are you going to go home again? If they're worried that you might not go home again because you have family there, some people think it's a benefit to say, my family is there. They're going to love this. I already have an uncle and aunt there. Sometimes they don't love it. Sometimes they don't like that because they think you're trying to stay in America. If you say there's so many opportunities in America, that's why I'm going. You don't want to say there's so many opportunities because they think you're trying to stay for work. So your purpose, especially to your visa interviewer, your purpose is only to study and to go home again. That's your goal, to prove to them that you're going to study and go home again. That would be my first comment on that.
Okay,
ahead,
wonderful. Sure. Yeah, wonderful. You almost covered it all.
Sorry, Carrie, don't take your job.
You're fine. Definitely, I agree with everything you have said, and I would highlight something is the most important thing is why are you going to the United States? They don't want to sense that you are going to the United States and stay in the United States. They want you to earn your degree and go back to your home country. So if they sense the fact that you have a plan to remain in the US, then you may not get the visa and you didn't really do well in this interview. The other question that you may receive or get during the interview, they may ask you about how you would finance your education. So many of the students need to take their financial document, and I would like to emphasize something here very important. So when you submit the financial document to issue the I-20, this financial document has and must be notarized. It has to be authentic. So you cannot just print something from the computer, like bank statement, and someone just write a letter, I'm sponsoring Jason and Amani. So it's not going to work this way. It has to be formal and notarized. And you may need to take these documents with you during the visa interview. So basically, how you will finance your education will be another one of the most popular questions.
Excellent. So it sounds like students should be prepared to cover their study plan, why they've selected the university they've selected, how they're prepared for their studies, how they can finance their education, and most importantly, what their post-graduation plans are and how those involve returning to their home country. So I guess that leads us to our next question. So we talked a little bit about kind of the content of the interview and what students should be prepared in terms of their responses to the questions that they get. But in general, can you talk a little bit about the atmosphere of the interview? How long does it take? What should students wear? Any other tips for a successful student visa interview? And let's start with Mani.
Sure. So I would say, first of all, try to dress professionally, formal. So you don't want to go in your jeans as much as you can to show like you're a serious candidate for this visa. I would say one of the things, first of all, I do hear from students all the time who got their visa rejected. The interview was rushed. So I heard a lot. It's a very fast interview. Sometimes they would tell me it's less than 5 minutes. I always ask them, what happened? What were you like? What exactly the atmosphere was? The most popular thing, they were rushed. The other thing I would say something that the students will always tell me is the fact that they didn't really get lots of questions. Sometimes they will just get one question or two, and that's it, rejected. That's what I hear from students. So we said earlier, you will be asked about this, that, then, and you may go and you may get surprised. It is just one question. Why are you going to the United States? And maybe if you just fail to answer this question right, you're done. They're not gonna go and ask more questions. And I would say the most popular rejection reason I do get, because I do actually reach out to every single student who did not get their visa, and I ask about the rejection reason. The number one reason, I would say, maybe I want to almost say the only rejection reason I get is lack of showing strong ties to their home country. They did not show strong ties to their home country, which means that the embassy official did sense the fact that if they're going to come to the US, they really want to stay in the US. They don't want to just get this degree and work with it in their home country. They want to stay here in the US. So this is the number one rejection reason. And for that, I would say my best advice is to show strong ties to your home country through career, that you have a job. So you want to earn your degree because your career is requiring you to earn your master's degree. You will get better salary if you earn your degree and go back to your home country. You want to show that you have family business. So you want to earn your degree to help your family. So I'm just giving you ideas for something that you may show strong ties, and definitely if it is true. That's what I have.
Jason, anything to add?
I absolutely agree with everything Amani said, 100%. And I would say, again, with the ties back to I think sometimes students really have a misconception of what the student visa is supposed to be. And because maybe they do have family in America. Oh, my aunt and uncle went to America. And so this is a pathway for me too, that I can, and maybe it is and maybe it isn't. But Amani and I don't work for the U.S. government. That's not our role, and we don't report to them what students are up to or what they're doing. The thing is, you have to understand that the goal of this visa, the goal of the visa is to get it and go home, not to get it and stay for opportunities and other things. Now, of course, as Amani also talked about, we also at our school offer OPT and CPT, which are work opportunity, internship opportunities, paid usually opportunities to work during school and after schooling. We'll have some of those opportunities. STEM, maybe I'll just make one word about STEM. STEM is science and technology, math majors. They can stay longer to work than other majors. So you may want to consider that when deciding a major if you'd like to stay longer. But basically, you need to show those ties to your home country, as Amani mentioned. And one of the things, if you have a job, for example, and you can get a letter from your job saying, hey, when John or Cynthia comes back to their country, they will have a job waiting for them. So getting that kind of documentation, as Amani mentioned, sometimes the interview is just one or two questions. Sometimes the interview's over before the interview starts. If you don't have the paperwork, if you can't show that you're going home again, or that you have enough money, or that you know where you're going, they're just being polite by asking the questions, frankly, because they've already decided you're not going. So you need to be, and again, I agree with Amani, dress nicely, put on a tie, guys, even be professional. Ladies, professional attire. So I agree with all those statements.
So if I could ask you to comment just on one additional item, which is this balance between being prepared and having heard responses to questions that may be asked, and then only being asked one general question: why do you want to go to the United States? So what advice do you have for students to make sure they get their point across and also not sound too rehearsed? And either one of you, Jason or Amani, if you have comments on that.
Okay, go ahead, Jason.
Go ahead.
Okay, so for me, be yourself. I always tell the students, be yourself. So something about me, I used to be a career counselor in the past, like over 10 years, and I used to prepare students for a job interview. And I always say confidence is your key. You need to be confident. You need to be authentic, real. And when I say that, is just go, try to be relaxed. I know it's hard, but the thing is, if you know you have everything right, you should not really worry about it. The thing is, as Jason mentioned earlier, they decide sometimes before the interview starts based on the information that you have provided. They have a system, data. So they just want to make sure you have the personality, sometimes just the personality. So just be relaxed and authentic and real and honest. Honesty is a key. Don't ever think about hiding or lying, because I have experienced something in the past where the students told me, I don't want to mention that my sister lived in the US. I'm like, guess what? They know. So it's better that they hear it from you than you are hiding it, because sometimes they will ask questions. Do you have relatives or someone that you know in the US, or where you will be living when you arrive to the US? And in your mind, you're going to go to your sister's house or close friends. So don't try to say, oh, I'll go to the hotel. They know. So just honesty is a key here. Jason, you can go ahead.
So I basically agree with what Amani says. I guess the one caveat is I would say that you just need to be careful about offering up or volunteering information that you're not being asked. If you're not being asked something, don't volunteer the information. That's all I will say about that is just be smart. And there's a lot of, on YouTube and other stations, you can find lots of people giving advice and talking about their experiences having an F1 visa interview. spend a little bit of time doing your own research on successes and failures and tips and tricks. And there's a lot out there. Avail yourself, make yourself available to these sources.
I 100% agree with you, Jason. I love this advice. Please, guys, take it seriously. Do not offer answers. I would say that this is very important tip.
Thank you so much for those helpful tips. So Amani, you already touched on our next question a little bit, but maybe if you could expand on some common reasons why a student might be denied a visa to study in the United States.
Sure. The only two reasons I did get from students throughout my work experience is failed to show strong ties to their home countries and prove finances. They did not prove the fact that they have sufficient funds or they would be able to finance their education, whether through their own money, bank statement, or through their sponsors. So these are the two major rejection of the visa that I received, like from my experience.
I would just add to that really you have to have some basic rudimentary understanding of English. And I'll emphasize this again, that please don't wait till you get to your ESL program in the United States before you start studying ESL again. Please start studying now. There's so much opportunity and there's so many free resources. If you search Google, you can find in 10 minutes many resources to begin to practice your English, to get your grammar going, get your listening going, because you're going to need a lot of listening, and even your writing, because most of your grades in college will be things that you write. It's going to be tests you take, essays that you submit. A lot of it's going to be writing. So you need to start practicing now. It's going to happen. So please don't, and this is going to help you for the interview. If you go into the interview and you're no English, they wonder about how serious you are as a student. So I'll just add that.
Great advice. Okay, so we've gotten some of these questions in the chat today, and it came up frequently in our pre-submitted questions. Do you have any advice or suggestions for students who are dealing with long wait times to schedule their student visa interview? And I guess, Jason, maybe we'll start with you this time.
Can you repeat your question one more time? I was reading someone else's question. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, in some locations, wait times are very long, in some cases over a year. Do you have any suggestions on how students may be able to deal with long wait times for a visa appointment?
This is more probably a question for Amani, but I would say I don't know know that some countries can go to other countries to have it. And I mean, that's sometimes possible, but sometimes not. You can apply for an emergency. You can say, I need an emergency interview because I really want to be going for spring or for fall. That might work. It might not work. So I don't have great advice on that one, but maybe Amani has more, she may have more experience with that.
Sure. The only thing I would say is students usually apply for expedited visa appointment, and they ask the college to provide them with a letter of support that we need the students to join the program at this date because seats are limited. And so we do provide a letter of support for students when they apply for expedited visa appointments. And I notice it does work. Also, as Jason mentioned, some students will just go to another country, like someone from Sierra Leone will do their interview in Nigeria because there are more available appointments. So this is the only two things I have seen. And the good news is here, I would like to share is there are more appointments nowadays versus in the past during the pandemic and afterwards. So now it seems like it's really barely I do receive an email from a student, I couldn't find a visa appointment. So this is something good to share.
Thanks for that advice. And I guess one rule of thumb is just to keep encouraging students to check back to see if more appointments become available. So check back on the visa portal and see if new appointments are available, and keep trying. All right. So once the student gets their appointment, we talked about how to prepare, with responses to questions. What kinds of documents should students plan to bring with them? I know the visa appointment interview is usually quick, and the consular officer may not necessarily look thoroughly at any documents, but as a rule of thumb, what do you suggest students should come prepared with in terms of documentation? And I guess, Amani, we'll start with you.
Sure, it's 5 items you have to bring with you. The first one, you printed and signed Form I-20 from the college. Make sure if you do receive it electronically, to sign the first page in a blue ink. It has to be blue ink. The number 2 item, valid passport. You need the confirmation page from your non-immigrant visa application, which we call DS-160. And definitely you need to bring your I-91 fee payment, which is basically your CVIS receipt that you have paid the CVIS fee. And the amount is basically $350 US. So you have to show the receipt. And again, it's called I-91 fee payment receipt. And last but not least, you have to bring 2 individual photographs that meets all the requirements for the US visa, which is basically the passport, the US passport visa. It has to be white background and 2x2, I think, size. So there is actually a link about the requirement for a US visa, like how to take the photo. So these are the items that you must take. And I will add financial documents, because they always would like to look at financial documents. So always bring your financial document, notarized documents, because you could be asked about them. So be prepared.
So Amani talked before about ties to your home country. Again, they want to know that you're going to study and then go home again, right? And they don't want you to just tell them that. People tell them that all the time. They want you to prove it. They want you to show it. How do you do that? Again, on top of the basic, it's all those great things that Amani just mentioned. But if you own a property, for example, if you own a home in your home country, bring your mortgage statement. If you own a car, another like a large thing, bring your title to your car. So it shows that, because these kind of things show you're coming back home again. You see, when you prove to them, not just tell them these things, but to prove it. Just going back to the visa wait time question, I put in the chat a link to the US government's visa wait time. So you can put the city where you're going to go and you can see the wait time. It's whether it's 1 day, 2 days, 300 days, depending on where you are. So just look through the recent part of the chat here, and you can see that link to that site. Also, whoops, I just muted myself, sorry. And also so the visa wait time is there, and also put in my email address if you'd like to contact me as well.
Okay, I know we have a number of questions. We have one more pre-submitted question, which is, if a student's visa is denied, what are the steps to reapply, and what suggestions would you give to these students? We'll start with Jason.
So again, I would think I'll say that probably Amani knows a bit more about this particular part of this, but I would say I know you have a year when you pay for your CVIS, right? You have a year on that, so you can apply again. But again, for us, our school, we ask people not to apply again for the next semester, but for the semester following, because unless you're going to go back to them with new documents and a new reason why you're applying, you're just going and saying, I know you rejected me before, but can I ask one more time? And there's no reason for them to change their mind unless you're able to show more financing or better ties to your country. I think you have a year. But for ours, we'd recommend not going back, but waiting 1 semester. But that's just our policy.
Yeah, that is actually an excellent answer. This is what I have. The only thing I will add is focus on the reason of the rejection. Before you leave the embassy, they will provide you with the letter, and they will let you know most of the time why you have been rejected. And most of the time, they will cite something called 21B, which means you didn't show strong ties to your home country. So try to know the reason, if possible, from the letter. So for all the students that they did the interview, they did get the letter. So I'm not sure if it's the rule or not. Every single student will get a letter, but I would say if you know the reason, then when you want to reapply again, make sure to show that this reason is not there anymore. So if you didn't show a strong tie to your home country, I like what Jason suggested earlier. Get a letter from your employer. If you are working in, for example, Nigeria, India, bring a letter from employer saying that they have sent you to finish your degree, then you come back. Anything that proves the fact that you are coming back, since this was the rejection reason. So focus on the rejection reason in order to know what documents you need to provide at your next interview, so this reason doesn't exist anymore.
Thank you so much. So we are running low on time, but we've had a number of questions in the chat and Q&A related to kind of advice you'd give a prospective undergraduate student. The examples you gave about documentation, proving ties to your home country may not be applicable to an 18 or 20-year-old student. So what are some examples of some documentation that a prospective undergraduate student might be able to bring with them? Jason.
Well, yeah, it's a hard question. I think if you don't, again, I think if you can get some kind of documentation that even from family, if it comes right down to it, saying, hey, we're expecting Joe or Cynthia to come back home to work in the family business or help her family. She's going to, as I think Amani mentioned before, saying to them, hey, I'm going to do this. The purpose of this is so that I can go home and help my family. And if you can show even some kind of documentation, even it's better to come from outside of the family, probably, if you can find someone to say, hey, this person has a job or a place to live when they come back, ready for them. That would be my advice. Oh, and by the way, all the folks who are putting things in the chat, I do encourage folks to put their contact info. If I put mine in there, if you would like to put yours, feel free to. I'd be happy to talk to folks.
Okay, I would say another thing is they can show is, at least for most of our undergraduate students, they are actually Davis scholars, so they do get a full scholarship. So sometimes it's the school who are actually sending them to the college. So this is actually a plus when they are like an A+ students, it looks, and with a full scholarship. So they have to bring the scholarship documents with them. So that's my other point.
Great advice. I'm sorry, but our time is basically up. I know you asked a lot of questions here in the chat and Q&A. We do offer these sessions throughout the year. So if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to your Apply Board representative. I know Jason was kind to supply his personal contact information, but it's best if you can route your questions through your Apply Board representative, and we can send them, collect them, and ask our experts here. As a reminder, you will get a follow-up message with a recording of the session along with some helpful resources. And thank you again to our panelists, to you for taking time out of your day to join us. We appreciate all of your thoughtful questions and engagement. And to Jason and Amani, thank you so much for your insights and advice. Have a great day, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.